Fluent Fables. Learn English with story.
Hello and welcome to Fluent Fables. I'm so happy to have you here. Today, we're diving into a hilarious new story for English practice, The Great Cake Caper. It's a comedy about a guy named Leo who has to deliver a wedding cake, but things don't go exactly as planned. Before we start, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more great stories, and share it with your friends who are also learning English. Be sure to listen to the end to find out if Leo can fix his mess, and please let me know what you think of the story in the comments below. Now, let's begin. Leo was not a baker. To be more precise, he was a walking, talking, staggering disaster in a baker's apron. He was, however, deeply in love with a cake. Not just any cake, but the most magnificent three-tiered chocolate and raspberry confection his best friend Maya had never created for a client's wedding. Today was the day to deliver it, but Maya had twisted her ankle. So Leo, with a sense of mischievous duty, had volunteered to take it. "Leo, please be careful," Maya said, her voice filled with a mixture of concern and resignation. She watched him from her kitchen stool, her leg propped up on a cushion. "The instructions are simple. Drive slowly, don't hit any bumps, and whatever you do, don't drop it." "Drop it? Maya, please!" Leo flourished a hand dramatically, nearly knocking over a bowl of leftover frosting. "I am a master of carefulness. This cake is my sacred mission." The cake was a masterpiece. It had delicate chocolate curls and fresh raspberries arranged in a stunning pattern. It looked almost too appetizing to be real. Maya had been working on it for 3 days straight, and every inch of it was perfect. The wedding was at a grand hotel just a few miles away. What could possibly go wrong? Leo carefully placed the massive cake box in the passenger seat of his small, slightly rusty car. He buckled the seatbelt around it. He even sang a soft lullaby to it, just to be sure. He started the car, a hopeful grin on his face. The first 5 minutes were a breeze. He drove at a glacial pace, meticulously avoiding every tiny pebble on the road. A delivery truck pulled up behind him and honked impatiently. Leo ignored it. This cake was more important than traffic laws. He was just turning onto a quiet street when he saw it. A dog. A very large, very happy golden retriever, chasing a squirrel right into the middle of the road. Leo's eyes went wide. He slammed on the brakes. The cake box, despite its seatbelt, slid forward with a terrifying commotion. He heard a distinct thud. A cold fear, a chaos of epic proportions gripped Leo. He slowly, hesitantly, reached out to open the box. The dog and squirrel were gone, but the damage was done. The top tier of the cake had completely toppled over. A few of the raspberry decorations were now on the side of the box. A streak of chocolate frosting was smeared across the window. Leo let out a long, slow sigh. He was the culprit. He had failed his one simple task. His phone buzzed with an incoming text from Maya. "How's it going?" He didn't know what to say. He couldn't just tell her about this. He had to fix it. He had to fix it before the wedding, or his friendship with Maya might be over. Suddenly an idea, a very bad idea, popped into his head. He pulled his car over and looked at the mangled cake. He could rebuild it. He was resourceful. He could use some extra frosting he had in the kitchen. If I had known this would happen, I would have asked Maya to write down a recipe, but it was too late now. He needed to think fast. He drove to the nearest grocery store, feeling completely bewildered. His new mission was to get some frosting, some raspberries, and somehow, magically, turn this mess back into a beautiful wedding cake. He just hoped the store had the right kind of frosting, and that his artistic skills were better than his driving skills. Leo burst into the grocery store, a man on a mission. He grabbed a shopping cart and pushed it frantically down the first aisle, his eyes darting left and right. His goal was simple: get frosting and raspberries. He thought this would be easy. He was very, very wrong. The frosting section was a universe of possibilities. There were tubs of vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate frosting, some labeled whipped, others creamy, and even a few extra glazed. Which one was the right one? Leo had no idea. He remembered Maya telling him she made her own frosting, a fact that now felt like a cruel joke. He picked up a tub of rich chocolate fudge frosting. It looked similar to what he had seen on the cake. "This will have to do," he muttered to himself, feeling a sense of false confidence. Next, the raspberries. He found them in the produce section, beautiful and red. He grabbed a container, making sure not to crush them. So far, so good. He was almost at the checkout when he remembered something else. The top tier of the cake was completely ruined. He couldn't just put the frosting on the broken cake. It needed a new base. He looked around wildly. Could he use a small cake from the bakery section? That was his best bet. He found a small, round sponge cake, completely plain. Perfect. He put it in his cart and headed for the checkout. The cashier, a young woman with a tired expression, gave him a perplexed look. "Just these items?" she asked. "A tub of frosting, a container of raspberries, and a small plain cake?" Leo smiled a little too widely. "It's for a science project," he said with a hasty voice. The cashier simply raised an eyebrow and continued to scan his items. Leo paid and rushed out of the store, feeling like a spy who had just completed a dangerous mission. He didn't even notice the small puddle of water he stepped in, which left a soggy trail behind him. Back in his car, he assessed the situation. The original wedding cake was still a mess. He carefully opened the box again. The new sponge cake was in his lap. This was the moment of truth. He took out the tub of frosting and a plastic spoon he had borrowed from the cashier. He hadn't had a chance to buy a knife. He started to spread the frosting on the plain cake, trying to make it look like the original. It was much harder than it looked. The frosting was sticky, and his hands were already disheveled with chocolate. A passerby glanced at him, then at the car, and then at the frosting-covered mess. Leo quickly tried to disguise what he was doing by pretending to eat the frosting straight from the tub. The passerby just shook their head and walked on. Leo scoffed. People could be so judgmental. He was in the middle of a serious predicament. He finally finished frosting the small cake and placed the raspberries on top. It wasn't perfect. In fact, it was quite lopsided, and the raspberries looked more like they had been thrown on than carefully placed. But it was something. He carefully put the newly decorated cake on top of the original broken cake. Just as he was about to start the car, his phone rang. It was Maya. A wave of panic washed over him. He had to think of a reason why he was still not at the hotel. He answered the phone, trying to sound calm. "Hey, Maya. Everything's great. Just, stuck in traffic. Yeah, a parade, a big noisy parade with clowns. I am scrambling to find a detour." Maya paused. "A parade? Leo, I just checked the news. There are no parades today." Maya's voice on the phone went from concerned to dangerously calm. "Leo, where are you really?" she asked. Leo's mind raced. He had to think of something. Anything. "Okay, fine," he confessed, reluctantly. "I had a small incident, but everything's fine now. I'm on my way." He ended the call before she could ask more questions. He knew he had maybe 10 minutes before she would start calling the hotel. He drove the rest of the way with the speed of a snail and the focus of a hawk. He could see the grand hotel in the distance. The cake, his lopsided chocolatey imposter, sat precariously in the passenger seat. He pulled up to the main entrance where a very stately doorman stood waiting. "Delivery for the Miller-Johnson wedding," Leo announced, trying to sound important. The doorman looked at him, then at his car, then at the smeared cake box, and finally at the flour and frosting on Leo's face. He said nothing, but slowly opened the car door. As Leo carefully lifted the box, a slight tilt caused a raspberry to roll off the cake and fall to the ground. He quickly stepped on it. No one needed to know. He carried the box into the lavish ballroom. Tables were set, flowers were everywhere, and a live band was playing a soft, elegant melody. Everything was perfect. Everything except for the cake. The wedding planner, a woman who seemed to be made of pure efficiency, spotted him immediately. "You're late," she said, her tone as sharp as a new knife. "Put the cake on the stand over there." Leo walked to the designated spot and placed the cake on a tall, beautiful silver stand. It looked so out of place. The lopsided top tier, the slightly off-color frosting, the haphazardly placed raspberries. It was a disaster. He stood back, admiring his work, as a small crowd began to gather around the cake stand. Suddenly, Maya appeared, her ankles still wrapped but her face full of fire. She took one look at the cake and gasped. "Leo!" she exclaimed, her voice a low whisper of disbelief. Leo held his hands up in a gesture of surrender. I know, it's not perfect, but I tried," he pleaded. Just then, the bride and groom walked into the ballroom. They saw their guests gathered around the cake, and they smiled. The bride looked at the cake and and her eyes widened. "Oh my goodness," she said, a laugh bubbling up from her throat. "It's perfect." Everyone looked at her in surprise. The groom laughed too. "It looks just like the one my sister and I made when we were kids. We were terrible bakers," he explained. "This is so funny. It's better than the one we ordered." Leo was stunned. He gaped. The wedding planner, the doorman, and even Maya were equally dumbfounded. The bride and groom loved the cake because it was imperfect, because it was funny, and because it reminded them of a happy memory. Maya looked at Leo and shook her head, a smile slowly spreading across her face. "You're a menace, Leo," she said, but there was no anger in her voice. "A delicious menace." Leo smiled back, relieved. He had not only saved the day, but also made the couple laugh. He had failed at baking, but he had succeeded at bringing joy. He just hoped Maya wouldn't have another baking project for him anytime soon. New words and grammar structure. Staggering. Meaning, so great or surprising that it almost makes you unable to continue. It can also mean walking unsteadily. Example. The results of the test were staggering. Confection. Meaning, a fancy or elaborate sweet dish or cake. Example. The pastry chef made a beautiful chocolate confection for the party. Mischievous. Meaning, tending to cause minor trouble or doing things in a playful, naughty way. Example. The mischievous child hid his father's keys. Appetizing. Meaning, smelling or looking attractive and delicious. Example. The smell of the freshly baked bread was very appetizing. Commotion. Meaning, a state of confused and noisy disturbance. Example. The dog running through the park caused a huge commotion. Chaos. Meaning, complete disorder and confusion. Example. After the storm, the city was in a state of chaos. Culprit. Meaning, a person who is responsible for a crime or a problem. Example. The police found the culprit who stole the car. Bewildered. Meaning, confused and puzzled. Example. He was so bewildered by the complex instructions that he gave up. Frantically. Meaning, in a desperate or hurried way. Example. She ran frantically to catch the bus. Aisle. Meaning, a passage between rows of seats in a church, theater, or between shelves in a supermarket. Example. We walked down the main aisle of the grocery store. Glazed. Meaning, covered with a shiny, smooth coating. Example. The donut was covered with a sugar glaze. New grammar structure. Third conditional. Structure. If plus past perfect would have plus past participle. Meaning, we use the third conditional to talk about hypothetical situations in the past and their hypothetical results. We are talking about something that did not happen and are imagining the result. Example from the story, if I had known this would happen, I would have asked Maya to write down a recipe. Another example, if she had studied harder, she would have passed the exam. And that's the end of The Great Cake Caper. What did you think? Did you enjoy Leo's hilarious adventure? Let me know your favorite part in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to improve your English even more, be sure to check out our other videos here on the Fluent Fables channel. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.